I'm very pleased to be here for the first time in Ukraine and to UTIC. I'm going to talk today to about Simplified Technical English and its role in technical writing and translation. So the purpose of this presentation is this one, can be summarized in these points, is to introduce ASD Simplified Technical English, which from now on we will call it STE, explain the reasons why it was created, to give a short overview of its principle, rules and structure, to give information about software products and training, give information on how to use STE in technical writing and translation, to introduce potential future step towards localized version in other languages, I mean from STE into other languages, and to give information on where to find STE material. So this is about me. I think I've been already introduced. I will skip that. I will just only say that I work for a company producing components for aerospace and located in Italy, in the north of Italy. I am the chairman of the ASD Simplified Technical English Maintenance Group, STMG, and I was a former technical translator and technical writer. I translated for almost 10 years, mainly military manuals applicable to aerospace. So, first of all, ASD. ASD, what is ASD? ASD is the national, the European Association of Aerospace and Defense, and this includes 23 national association members in 18 countries, and together they represent 3,000 companies, employing more than 840,000 people in Europe. It is located in Brussels. And so, why English? English is the international language of engineering and science. Why technical? Because it is intended for technical texts. And why simplified? Simplified is to eliminate problems and comprehension, especially for non-native English speaker. And why 100? 100 it was assigned by the STMG as a tribute to ATA 100, which was the an American specification for the airlines, issued by the airlines to write in manuals. And it was the first international specification which in 1987 included the requirement to write in accordance with STE. So you can see the cover sheet of the specification there. Going back to the history, it's very short. It is longer than that, but I try to summarize the major steps. So the requirement to have simplified technical English came in the late 70s, and it was a requirement by driven by the European airlines. They asked the European Association of Aerospace Industry, at that time it was called ECMA, now is ASD, to investigate the readability of maintenance documentation in the civil aircraft industry and find a solution to simplify the language used to write such documentation. So the issue here is maintenance documentation, which is related to aircraft, airplanes, means also flight safety and the saving of human lives. So AECMA asked the equivalent association in the United States, which is called the Aerospace Industry Association of America, or AIA, to assist in the project. So two groups were formed, one in Europe and one in the United States. And they worked together to explore the existing control languages and research text in many maintenance manuals. The resulting conclusion confirmed the need for a simplified language, and so it was decided to launch the project called AECMA Simplified English in 1983. So the first intention of the fathers of Simplified Technical English was to create a control language based on existing control languages. So we can say now that the basic English produced by Professor Carl Ogden in 1930 is like a pioneer. It's like the predecessor, historical predecessor of Simplified Technical English. But there are two other documents played a key role on that. One was the Caterpillar Fundamental English, CFE, produced by Caterpillar to do maintenance on their products. And the second one was the McDonnell Douglas Technical Dictionary. This was actually used in aviation, already used in aviation in 1979. McDonnell Douglas is now Boeing. And so the models for creating Simplified Technical English were CFE for the writing rules and the McDonnell Douglas Technical Dictionary for the dictionary. So that was the starting point. So the product of this effort was the AECMA Simplified English Guide. You can see the cover sheet of the first issue, 1986. And later, we changed the name from AECMA Simplified English into ASD STE100, Simplified Technical English, no longer a guide, but a specification, an international specification. So this is basically a summary of what Simplified Technical English is. It's actually a set of writing rules. We have 53 writing rules in 9 sections and a dictionary of controlled vocabulary. So we have 864 approved words. So the basic English has 900, so you can see that the number is pretty much the same. So it makes technical text easy to understand, especially for non-native speakers of English, has a controlled general vocabulary with sufficient words to write all technical sentences, is adaptable, it is flexible, and permits the use of specific company terminology. It permits also the use of common engineering and scientific terms, permits the use of only one language for technical documentation, and where necessary, especially outside aerospace and defense, permits the creation of other control languages different from English. It also helps translation of English text into other languages and also helps the machine translation process. So who uses ASD STE100? STE was developed for the aviation, as we have seen before, and it is now a requirement of the specification used for writing technical publication. These two specifications are those who are used within aerospace and defense. S1000D is another ASD specification shared also with the Americans, and it is for writing the entire set of manuals applicable to an airplane, or land vehicles, or submarine, for example. It is applicable to air, land, and sea. And the other one is the development of ATA 100 I was mentioning before. It is now called ATA I 2200. However, we have 59% now of the STE users which are now located outside aerospace and defense. And copies of the specification has been requested by 107 different countries worldwide, 63% outside Europe, and more than 250 universities worldwide. And many important copies also in various sectors of industries. And this is quite interesting because this is from the log, of the SDMG, and it is the distribution of issue 7, which is the latest specification, which was released in January 2017. It is updated 1 week ago, July, and you can see the percentage. This is the percentage of the and the number of copies. So you can see that we have the United States in the first position, the UK in the second, Germany, Sweden, France, Canada, Netherlands. You can see Ukraine is, well, the list is longer. It's 107. And Ukraine is, if I remember correctly, is 31st position. And then, always from the log, you can see that the distribution within the continents. So you can see Europe has 53%, North America 28%, Asia, including the Middle East, 11%, South America 4%, Pacific area 4%, and Africa 1%. This is another interesting data, which you can see English-speaking, the percentage English-speaking countries and non-English-speaking countries. You see non-English-speaking countries is 57 versus 43. And this is the scenario by fields of activity. So you can see that aerospace and defense is 36% plus airlines and air forces down there, which is 6 is 42. So that means 58 outside at the moment. So you can see the second place is language services, translations and technical documentation. Third place, information technology, high-tech software and telecommunications. Then we have academics, education and research, automotive, railways and transportation, including sea. And we have, as we said, the airline and air forces, and the other different branches of industry, medical, mechanical engineering, manufacturing and processes, energy, oil, gas, electricity, nuclear, mining, etc., medical and healthcare, and private use. This is the distribution of the specification by field of activity. So, as I was mentioning, I chair the Simplified Technical English Maintenance Group, which is a non-profit group of professionals consisting of representatives from ASD member countries and non-ASD member countries. So our mission is to control, develop, and maintain ASD-STE100 specification, So throughout the years, starting from 1983, as I was mentioning before, we had 15 releases of the specification, including changes, issues, and revision. And they were produced in a total of 79 working meetings held in 12 countries and 22 cities. So particularly significant were the releases of issue 1, September 1995. It was after this issue was released after a 6 year of cleanup work. And then we had also issue 3 in January 2005. It was the one with the new name, ASD-STE100. And finally, the current and fully revised issue 7, January 2017. We are working on a new issue 8, which will be released in 2021. This is the composition of the STMG. You can see that it's composed by different countries. We have Italy, Austria, Germany, Spain, Sweden, France, UK, Russia, the United States of America, and Argentina. And then we have also some associate members. The associate members, we have 3 airlines. If you remember, I told you that the input to produce a simplified technical English, or to create simplified technical English, was from the airlines. So we have airlines there. We have Alitalia, we have SAS, and we have Iberia. And then also we have also an associate member from Japan, which is representing JTCA, which stands for Japan Technical Communication Association, and another governmental agency, which is called Infosta. Well, this is a picture of the group, last meeting we had in Stockholm. And so going back at the creation of simplified technical English, why a control language for aviation? So we can consider several reasons, especially if we look at the what happened in the aviation over the last 10 years. So the first point is the complexity of the air vehicles. You can see the very first aircraft that flew in 1910, the Wright brothers airplane, and you can compare the more modern ones up to now, including the big ones, the Airbus A380, and also more sophisticated helicopters. At the same time, we can compare the complexity of the documentation and data related to the aircraft. And if we start from the beginning, well, the manual was just only one volume, very, very few pages in that. And now we are talking about a paperless environment in which we have common source databases and interactive electronic technical publication. Now the manuals, the airplanes manuals, no more paper. Everything is online. It is also available to the crew. It is available to the pilots. It is available to all the maintenance personnel located everywhere in the world. And the other factor is the increasing number of readers, which are the users. Remember that Simplified Technical English was created for the users and not for the writers, who are non-native English speakers. And you see the percentage is only 20% of the users are English speakers. And then the information and data, so the content of the manuals, of the instructions, which has to be accurate, complete, relevant, and whatever. And I would say the most important one could be the fact that they have to be unambiguous, unambiguous because they have to be precise, to be followed as they are. So, going back at the beginning, a standard became necessary, a standard having a reduced number of words, words with defined meanings, words with defined parts of speech, and a simplified grammar structure. In essence, this is simplified technical English, because the basic principle of simplified technical English is one word, one meaning, one part of speech. And of course, a simplified grammar structure means writing rules. As I was saying before, control language for the maximum benefit of the readers. So, two parts. Part 1, writing rules, 53 rules in 9 sections. Part 2, dictionary, 866 approved words. So, the specification is available, this is important, at no cost. So, it is not downloadable, but if you go to the website www.asd-STE100.org, you can find a very simple form. There are few information to be filled in, and then you send to the form to the STMG address, and you will receive in couple of days maximum, you will receive a copy of the specification. The writing rules are divided in this way. We have 9 sections, we know. The first one is about the use of words. The second one is about the use of non-clusters. The number 3 is the use of verbs. We have sentences, procedural writings, descriptive writings, safety instructions, punctuation and word count, and writing practices. And this is how the dictionary works. Dictionary is very simple, it's 4 columns. We have column number 1, word and part of speech. The second one is the approved meaning or alternative. The third one is approved example, and the fourth not approved example. So you can see there are codes, the codes which are explained in the introduction to the dictionary. When we have a word in uppercase, it means that it's approved. And in this case, we have the approved meaning, and then we have the approved example. When the word is in lowercase, it is unapproved, and the dictionary give alternatives to be used instead of the unapproved word. And then there are example, not approved example, and approved example. Here there are some examples of rewriting. You can see the first is non-STE sentence, in which we say position a gasket on the right-hand outlet of the diffuser case, locate the tube together with the support bracket for the inlet tube of the bearing air cooler to the outlet. Secure tube and bracket to the outlet with the 4 bolts, torque tighten bolts to 4 Newton meters. You see that one of the basic principles of FSTE is to keep the sentences as short as possible, and the suggestion is to divide the long sentence into short sentences into steps, working steps, and you can see the rewriting in Simplified Technical English is consists of 4 steps in which we have put a gasket on the right outlet of the diffuser case. In this case, I have replaced the not approved word position with put, and I removed right hand with right, and then the second put the tube and the support bracket for the inlet tube of the bearing air coolant in the outlet, attach the tube and the bracket to the outlet with the 4 bolts, and torque each of the 4 bolts to 4 Newton meters. You can see that this is easier and it's straightforward. And then we have another one: when securing shaft in clamps, do not damage surface finish on shaft. And here we have, this is a simple one, but we have 2 things which are important, because Simplified Technical English does not allow the ing form of the verb, and also the word damage as a verb is not approved. And so this, you can say, when you attach the shaft to the clamps, do not cause damage to the surface finish on the shaft. So how you learn to use STE? So from the author side, which is the most difficult part, because as I was saying before, it is difficult to write, but must be easy to read. So the requisites are good writing skills, very good command of the English language, and good knowledge of the matter. So the first steps is careful study of the specification, the writing rules, and writing practices necessary to master the control vocabulary. And from the author's side, again, also a training is important. To this purpose, some members of the STMG are authorized trainers, and some of the members of my team give 3 days traditional classroom course. And then also there is also the possibility of having online training. In this case, the University Uninettuno in Rome is the authorized provider for such courses. It is structured on 4 weeks and is at distance. Uninettuno has an agreement with ASD, by which they are the authorized service provider for training, for online training. And starting from September, next September, Uninettuno will also provide a train-the-trainer course, which means that they are providing a course, a supplementary course for the people who want to become trainers and give training to other authors. So other trainers are available on the market. These trainers are good, others are not. They are not endorsed by ASD, but there is nothing wrong if the customers or authors can go also and have training delivered by them. Software products and authoring tools. Some products, I mean for products, syntax and grammar checkers, terms checkers, that support STE are available on the market. These tools are, well, although they are valid, cannot replace the specification, of course, and will not write STE text for the authors. They are not the magic solution for writing in STE, because the author must always have the last word on his text, and so again we have a policy of non-endorsement, because as a group we cannot say one is better than the other, but for us all of them are equal. So from the reader side instead, I would say the readers do not necessarily have to learn STE, because if the text is written in accordance with the rules, it must be perfectly understandable. So the reader receive a text that has to be clear, easy, fully understandable, and above all, linguistically and technically correct. So how we prepare a document in STE? Well, there are no fixed rules or schemes. So the skill and the competence of the author are the key factors. An author should be able to write a new text directly in STE, or convert or translate existing text from standard English into STE. And this is important because the author must always have the reader in mind. What it is clear for the author sometimes is not clear for the reader. And this is the challenge. You have to put yourself into the reader's shoes. So familiarization training can be useful for an author, and also the software can be useful, but the author must always have the last word on its text. So STE and translation. So there are tremendous benefits that a control language can have on translation process. When STE was created, one of the first primary objective was to make translation easier. So I would say that if the vocabulary, meanings, and types of sentences, constructions are controlled, the variation between texts will be minimal. Thus, it is easier for translators on translation engines to translate text written in one control language into a target language. In my opinion, a translator should be able to translate a text written in another language into STE and translate a text written in STE into another language. This is the two-way interaction. And the second option is a challenge and can result in future opportunities of localized version of STE in other simplified technical language. And this is interesting because back in 1986, when the first issue of Simplified English, ACMA Simplified English, was released, the French industry, aerospace industry, within the GIFAS, which is the French Aerospace of Industry Associations, created a parallel control language based on ACMA Simplified English. They call it rationalized French, and this is the cover sheet of the publication of 1986, where the principle and rules of simplified technical English were transferred into the French language with remarkable results. For some reasons, it has been abandoned, this project, so it is a legacy project, I would say, and this is no longer implemented. But this was an example, a good example for other projects which came later. And another one was the Español Técnico Simplificado, developed as a mirror language of STE in the same way as the French did in 1986. And the same principle has been applied more recently also to the Italiano Tecnico Simplificato, which is the Simplified Technical Italian, or ITS. And today we can say that we have several languages, English, Italian, Spanish, French, Russian, Japanese, and others. There was also a project in Russia which is called Simplified Technical Russian. The first time I presented in Moscow in 2010, it was presented in the same session as me, and more or less the principle was the same of rationalized French. I don't know if it is still active or not, but there is also this project in Russia, and there is also another one in Japan, which has been developed by our member within the group. So I put this is the Simplified Technical Spanish, Simplified Technical Italian as an example here. So we are getting to the end of this presentation, and I would say the basic principle of simplified English is one word and one meaning and one part of speech. So this is a joke. Say we do not perform the task, we do not carry out the task, we do not undertake the task, we simply do the task. And this is an example of writing in Simplified Technical English, which is nothing to do with aerospace. It's just simply a description of the mocha for the coffee. And you can see that descriptive writing sometimes is difficult. It's more difficult than procedural writing, because as we have seen, the procedural writing is in step and it is more schematic. The descriptive writing should obey other rules, which are stated in section 6 of the specification, and so there is a way to distribute the text into the description, so there should be no more than, for example, no more than 6 sentences in a paragraph, and this is the result. So we can say the mocha, usually known as caffettiera or macchinetta del caffè or macchinetta, is a device that has the function to make coffee. The mocha, referred to figure, has 3 primary parts: the boiler, the filter, the collector. To make coffee, it is necessary to fill the boiler A with water and put the ground coffee in the filter B. The collector C, which contains a second filter, is then tightened to the boiler A. A gasket prevents leakage between the assembled parts. When heat is applied to the mocha, the temperature of the water increases and causes vapor in the boiler. The vapor expands and pressurizes the water surface. This pressure pushes the mass of the water down, as shown in the figure. As a result, the water can only go through the funnel of the filter B and move up A to B. When it goes up, the water goes also to the ground coffee in the filter B and thus produces the coffee. The brewed coffee which passes through the pipe will gradually fill the collector C. At the end of the process, only air and vapor move from the boiler A to the collector C. The water level in the boiler A will be the same as the level of the filter inlet. The remaining water in the boiler will prevent overheating. A gasket makes sure that the parts are safely tight. A relief valve installed in the boiler A prevents an overpressure condition and operates when there is a blockage. You see that it is gradual. The description is gradual, and it's not jumping. It's following a logic. This all the rules of the descriptive writing are applied here in this example. And I think that's all. If you want to have more information about STE, we have a website, we have an email address, we have a Facebook page, we are on Twitter, we have a LinkedIn page. For requesting a copy, you can write an email with the form attached to the STMG address over there, and that's all. I would like to have questions.
Thank you, Orlando. That was very, very, very informative. So, grazie molto.
Welcome.
Did you have the time to digest and prepare some questions? Anyone? That's great.
Hello. You mentioned that over the years, the construction of planes, for example, has changed and has become more complex. So in the scope of this ASD project, the simplifications that have been made only concern the general vocabulary or the terms as well, because they have become, as the construction became more complex, then the terms also became richer. And so there have been simplifications only in terms of some general verbs, nouns, or technical terms as well.
Okay. Thank you. Very good question. As I was mentioning in the presentation, there are 864 or 866 approved verbs in the dictionary. So these words, these approved words, are to be used to write any sentence, but STE allows the use of technical verbs and technical names. So technical names can be whatever. The only condition of using technical names is that they fit in 19 categories which are included in the specification. So if you can fit a word which is not approved, so not included in the dictionary, in one of these categories, it can be used. If you can see the example also, the coffee machine, it includes plenty of technical names. And the same is for technical verbs. We have verbs. We have 4 categories in which we have manufacturing processes, in which we have operational verbs, in which we have computer verbs, information technology verbs, because now today they are used widely in all the documentation, especially also on the internet. So the complexity is related to how complex is your system. If it is a simple unit like this, you need only few words. But if it is an airplane or a missile or whatever, it may need more. But the important thing, I was discussing that yesterday, the important thing is that the project set up a glossary and before the project. So in order that it is the project that has the terminology set. Because sometimes we have many words to describe the same things. So, and this is not in accordance with the principle, because if you start naming this unit with A, you should not call it B or C in other parts of your manuals. It has to be consistent. I don't know if I answered your question.
Are there any more questions?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Orlando. It's me again. It's me. We were talking we were speaking about the glossaries yesterday. I have another question. I have never heard anything actually about the simplified Russian language, technical language. As far as I know, the STE is a recommended specification in the European Union for at least for the aviation and defense industries, if I'm not mistaken. What about the status of the Russian one? And do you know anything about how they maybe interact or interfere with the Russian state standards in the aviation area specifically? Because there are standards, GOST, the industry rules, авиационные правила, по-моему, and other regulations in Russia which stipulate the terminology. However, at least part of it is not recognized. Is not like recognized by the industry actors themselves, who say that some of the GOST standards are not like low quality or whatever. Do you have any information about how do the standardization organs of Russia participate in this somehow, or any movements in this area? I'm asking because I sometimes have to deal with aviation documents and translate from English to Russian or from Russian to English.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So, well, the specification, the international specification that recommend the use of simplified technical English, mainly two, as I was mentioning before. So they are not only applied into the European Union, but they are S1000D and ATA. They are applicable all over the world. And when I presented, I was mentioning before, I presented in Moscow. That was the S1000D User Forum, which was organized in Russia 9 years ago. There is an agreement between ASD and Russia to use also the S1000D translated into Russian, so they were using a Russian version as 1000D. I don't know if they are still using it, in which project they are using that. And as far as I remember, the Simplified Technical Russian was developed by a company, a simple company which is called Aviaok. It's a Russian company. And as I was saying before, I'm not sure if the project is still going on or it's been abandoned. Regarding the other aspect, including the Russian regulations, perhaps the best thing to do is I can give you the references of the Russian representative into the STMG, because she is working for the standardization center in Moscow, and so she will be able to answer better than me. I will give you the email address. You can contact Irina. Yes.
Irina.
Hello, Orlando. I have a question concerning any automated tools that would allow to reveal any potential project. In terms of editor's work, are there any tools, for example, to reveal problems like using the one word as a noun and as a verb?
Yes, there are. Yes.
Yes, there are some.
Yes, there are. If you are interested, I can give you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
Yes, I have a list.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Yes.
Do we have any more questions? Yeah, sure.
Hello.
Hello.
I have a question. Do you know anything about whether there are some simplified English language standards or glossaries in other fields? Not only in the technical field, but public, maybe scientific. Whether anybody did something like this apart from the technical field.
Well, I would say that I don't know if in other industries they have created something similar. The only thing I can say is that, as you have seen, we have many requests from outside, so many fields, and the feedback I have is that there is no need to adapt the simplified technical English as it is to other industries, and if there is, it will be minimal. As far as the vocabulary, I think if they have their own vocabulary, their own glossary, it could be used as it is. In fact, our effort now is to try to reduce as much as possible in the examples. We started some years ago to reduce as much as possible the examples related to aerospace and to make them more generic in order to be used in a general way. For example, 10 years ago we had hundreds of examples in which there was the word aircraft there. Now we are trying to remove the word aircraft and replace it with vehicles or with something else in order to be less aerospace related.
Thank you.
And we had Luciano, right?
Hi, Orlando. You were talking about the specification that it's not downloadable, but it can be requested at no cost, right?
Sorry, say that again.
The specification is not downloadable, but it can be requested at no cost.
Yes.
Can it be used for commercial purposes, or are there any restrictions?
For use the specification?
Yes.
No, there are no restrictions. The only thing is that it has to be used as it is. It cannot be extracted. There are no parts that can be extracted. This is the only restriction.
Okay, and would you say that it's enough, for example, if it's part of a workflow, let's say, to require that linguists, content creators, refer to the specification in order to write in simplified technical English, or would you recommend that? Would you recommend to hire a trainer? Would you advise that hiring a trainer is more recommendable in this case than simply referring to the specification?
You mean using the specification without training?
Yes.
Well, it depends on the skill and the knowledge of the authors, because there are many authors, as far as I know, that uses the specification as it is, without the need of any training. So, studying the specification and then use it. But it has to be a very skilled author. Well, I think a minimum training could be useful. But there is nothing preventing people from using the specification without training.
Thank you.
When we released the issue 7 in 2017, we made a complete review of the writing rules. So they were a sort of sacred texts which were written in 1986, and since then nobody touched them. Now we have simplified and we wrote the rules according to our rules. Now the specification is written in 90% in simplified technical English. Before it wasn't. And some criticism were, well, you are saying that we have to write in Simplified Technical English, but your specification is not written at all in Simplified Technical English. Now it is written in Simplified Technical English. So as it is written in Simplified Technical English, it is easier to read and understand from everybody, better than before. For example, when we were referring to people, to the users, in up to issue 6, there was mechanic, operator, many different words to say the same thing. Now we have only the writer and the reader.
Well, I think we are going to close here, but we see that it's a very important topic for many people, and there's lots of questions, so we can always continue the discussion in our free time. And now, thank you once again, Orlando.
Okay.
That was really great, and thank you everyone for your participation. We're now taking a short break, just 3 minutes, to prepare the next presentation. And don't leave us, we have legal translation coming up.
Okay, thank you very much.